Get your hands off me. Do you know who I am? The words cut through the smoke and chaos like shards of ice, freezing. Marcus Thompson, where he knelt on the scorched pavement. His burned hands trembled not from pain, but from the cruel dismissal in the eyes of the woman he'd just dragged from death's embrace. The elegant CEO, whose face graced Fortune magazine covers, stared at him with disgust, seeing only a soot-covered janitor, not the man who'd risked everything to save her life. Welcome to a story about heroes hidden in plain sight, about the price of pride and the moment when true worth blazes brighter than any fire. Stay with me until the end and drop a comment about which city you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this story travels. The Grand Meridian Hotel stood like a crown jewel in downtown Chicago's skyline, its 42 floors of gleaming glass and steel reflecting the October sunset in shades of amber and gold. For 23 years, it had hosted presidents and celebrities, billion-dollar deals, and fairy tale weddings. Tonight, it would host something else entirely, a tragedy that would strip away facades and reveal the true nature of those caught in its grasp. Marcus Thompson pushed his maintenance cart through the marble lobby at 7:47 p.m., the wheels squeaking slightly on the polished floor. His reflection in the gleaming surfaces showed a man who had once stood taller, prouder, before life had worn down his edges like water over stone. The navy blue janitor's uniform hung loose on his frame, hiding the physique that had once carried wounded soldiers through Afghan mountain passes. His name tag read simply Marcus, Maintenance, though it could have read so much more: Purple Heart recipient, Silver Star, father, widower, survivor. "Daddy's working late again tonight, Sweet Pea," he murmured into his phone wedged between his shoulder and ear as he emptied a trash bin. "But Mrs. Chen next door is making your favorite dumplings. The ones with the little pleats on top?" 7-year-old Emma's voice crackled through the cheap phone, bright with excitement despite the static. "Those very ones. Now you be good for her, finish your homework, and I'll read you 2 chapters of Harry Potter when I get home, deal?" 3 chapters. Marcus smiled, the expression transforming his weathered face. "You drive a hard bargain, Emma Thompson. 2.5. Deal, love you, Daddy. Love you more, baby girl." He ended the call and slipped the phone into his pocket, not noticing the elegant woman who had paused nearby, her Louboutin heels clicking impatiently on the marble as she waited for someone. Victoria Sterling, though Marcus didn't know her name yet, stood with the bearing of someone who had never waited for anything in her life. Her charcoal Armani suit was tailored to perfection, her platinum watch worth more than Marcus would make in 5 years. She was 38, though she could have passed for younger, if not for the hardness around her eyes, the look of someone who had climbed to the top by stepping on others' fingers as they tried to climb beside her. She was speaking rapidly into her phone, her voice carrying across the lobby with the unconscious volume of someone used to being heard. "I don't care what the Tokyo office says. The deal closes tonight or heads will roll. I didn't build Sterling Industries into a Fortune 500 company by accepting excuses." Marcus moved past her, invisible as always. The invisible ones, janitors, security guards, food service workers. They were the ghosts who kept the world running while the living barely noticed them. He'd learned to be invisible in Afghanistan too, moving through hostile territory like a shadow. But that had been by choice for survival. This invisibility was different. This was the invisibility of the dismissed, the overlooked, the deemed unimportant. The lobby bustled with its usual evening crowd. Business executives heading to the rooftop restaurant, tourists gawking at the 3-story waterfall feature, a wedding party posing for photos near the grand staircase. Marcus navigated through them all with practiced ease, his cart weaving between designer luggage and distracted pedestrians. He was heading toward the service elevator when he noticed it, a smell that didn't belong. Beneath the lobby's signature scent of jasmine and sandalwood, there was something else. Something acrid, chemical wrong. His military training kicked in before his conscious mind could process it. That smell, he knew it from Kandahar, from convoy routes lined with IEDs. "Excuse me," he said to a passing security guard, a young man named Derek who spent more time flirting with the reception staff than watching the monitors. "Do you smell that?" Derek barely glanced at him. "Smell what? Look, man, I don't have time for." The explosion came from somewhere below in the parking garage. The floor trembled, the lights flickered, and for a moment everything stopped. The waterfall ceased its cascade. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the Muzak seemed to hold its breath. Then came the smoke. It poured from the stairwell doors like a living thing, black and thick and hungry. The fire alarms shrieked to life, their piercing wail mixing with the first screams of panic. The elegant lobby transformed into chaos in seconds. The wedding party scattered the bride, tripping over her train. Tourists pushed and shoved toward exits that were already clogging with bodies. Marcus's mind shifted into combat mode, the lobby becoming a battlefield to assess. Primary exits, main entrance, two side doors, service entrance. Secondary exits, kitchen access loading dock. Obstacles, overturned luggage, fallen decorative plants, the human stampede itself. Casualties already, he could see an elderly man who'd been knocked down, a child separated from parents, a woman frozen in panic near the elevators. But his training had taught him something else in chaos. Someone needs to take command. Do not use the elevators. His voice boomed across the lobby, the sergeant's bark that had once carried across firefights. Main entrance and side exits only. Help those who've fallen. Parents, keep your children close. Some people listened. Many didn't. The smoke was thickening, rolling across the coffered ceiling like storm clouds. The sprinkler system activated, adding to the chaos as cold water rained down, making the marble floors treacherous. Marcus abandoned his cart and moved toward the elderly man who'd been trampled. He helped him to his feet, supporting his weight as they moved toward the exit. "You're okay, sir. Just keep moving. That's it." He passed the man to a younger couple and turned back. The child, a boy of maybe 5, stood crying near the concierge desk, calling for his mommy. Marcus scooped him up without hesitation. "I've got you, buddy. We're going to find your mom, okay." "What's her name?" "Sarah," the boy wailed. "Sarah, mommy." "Sarah!" Marcus bellowed over the chaos. "Sarah, your son is here." A woman's frantic voice responded from near the main entrance, and Marcus pushed through the crowd to reunite them. The mother sobbed her thanks, but Marcus was already moving, already searching for the next person who needed help. The smoke was getting thicker, darker. The pleasant coolness of the sprinklers was giving way to heat, intense growing heat from below. The fire was climbing, feeding on the hotel's bones, racing through ventilation shafts and stairwells. Most of the lobby had cleared now, streams of people pouring onto Michigan Avenue, where sirens were already wailing. Marcus should have left too. Emma needed him. She needed her father to come home tonight to read her those chapters he'd promised to be there when she woke up tomorrow. But then he saw her. Victoria Sterling was on the ground near the grand staircase, partially hidden by the smoke. A massive decorative beam, part of the hotel's original 1920s architecture that had been preserved for aesthetic value, had fallen, pinning her legs. She was conscious, struggling frantically but futilely against the weight. Marcus didn't hesitate. He couldn't. It wasn't in his nature to leave someone behind, even someone he didn't know, even when every instinct screamed at him to get out. He rushed to her, dropping to his knees beside the beam. "Ma'am, stop struggling. You'll hurt yourself worse." His hands assessed the situation with practiced efficiency. The beam was heavy, maybe 300 pounds, but it had fallen at an angle, creating a small gap. She wasn't crushed, just trapped. Victoria's eyes were wide with terror, tears cutting tracks through the ash on her face. "Please," she gasped, and in that moment she wasn't a CEO or a millionaire or anyone special. She was just a human being afraid of dying. "I'm going to get you out," Marcus said, his voice calm despite the inferno growing around them. "When I lift you, pull yourself backward. Ready." He positioned himself, remembering the deadlift form that had kept him strong through deployment, through single fatherhood, through long nights of manual labor. The smoke burned his lungs. The heat was becoming unbearable. Somewhere above, something crashed, ceiling tiles falling, or maybe something worse. Marcus lifted. The beam rose inches just enough. "Now move." Victoria dragged herself backward, gasping, sobbing. The moment she was clear, Marcus let the beam drop, his strength nearly spent. But they weren't safe yet. She was trying to stand, but her ankle was clearly injured, broken, or severely sprained. "I can't walk," she gasped. Without asking permission, Marcus scooped her into his arms. She was lighter than the combat packs he'd carried through the mountains, lighter than the wounded private he'd carried 2 miles to the medevac point while under fire. The main entrance was blocked now. Too much smoke, too much heat. But Marcus knew the building's layout like a catechumen knows prayers. The service entrance through the kitchen. It would still be clear. He ran, Victoria clutched against his chest, her arms wrapped around his neck. Through the dining room, where abandoned meals still sat on white tablecloths. Through the kitchen, where pots boiled over on abandoned stoves. The smoke was everywhere now, a living thing trying to crawl down their throats and into their lungs. The service door appeared through the haze like a miracle. Marcus kicked it open, and they tumbled out into the alley where the October air felt like Arctic wind against their burned faces. He carried her around to the front of the building where ambulances and fire trucks had created a maze of flashing lights. Gently, so gently, he laid her on the pavement where paramedics were already rushing forward. Victoria was coughing, gasping, but alive. Gloriously, miraculously alive. Marcus knelt beside her, his own body finally registering the damaged burns on his hands and arms, lungs that felt like they'd been scrubbed with steel wool exhaustion that went bone deep. But she was safe. That's what mattered. The paramedics were checking her vitals, placing an oxygen mask over her face when her eyes found his. And in that moment, as the smoke began to clear from her lungs and the terror began to fade, something else crept into her expression. The softness was gone, replaced by something Marcus had seen too many times before, the look of someone remembering their place in the world and his. She pushed the oxygen mask aside. "Get your hands off me," she said, her voice hoarse but clear. "Do you know who I am?" The words hit Marcus like shrapnel. He pulled back, his burned hands dropping to his sides. Around them, the scene seemed to freeze. Paramedics paused. Bystanders turned. Even the flames reflecting in the hotel windows seemed to hold their breath. "Ma'am," one of the paramedics said carefully, "this man just saved your life." Victoria's eyes swept over Marcus, taking in the janitor's uniform, the soot-covered face, the maintenance badge. Her lip curled slightly, just slightly, but enough. "I'm sure he was just doing his job," she said dismissively. "The hotel will compensate him appropriately. Now please, I need proper medical attention. Do you have any idea who you're treating?" "I'm Victoria Sterling." "Sterling Industries." "I could buy this entire block." She turned to one of the police officers who had approached. "Officer, make sure someone gets my belongings from the hotel safe and call my assistant. She'll handle the insurance claims. This is going to cost the hotel millions in damages." Not a word of thanks. Not a glance back at the man who'd risked everything to save her. Marcus remained on his knees on the wet pavement, watching as they loaded her onto a gurney, as she made demands about which hospital to be taken to, as she complained about the oxygen mask smudging her makeup. The crowd that had gathered began to murmur. Someone had been recording, of course, someone had been recording. This was the age of phones and viral moments where human drama became content before the blood had dried. "Did you see that? He saved her life. What a bitch. Is that really Victoria Sterling, the CEO?" Marcus stood slowly, his legs unsteady. A paramedic approached him, a young woman with kind eyes. "Sir, we need to check you out. Those burns." "I'm fine," Marcus said quietly. "Sir, please. You've got second-degree burns at minimum, smoke inhalation. You need treatment." But Marcus was already walking away, moving through the crowd that parted before him like he was Moses, and they were the Red Sea. Behind him, the Grand Meridian continued to burn flames. Now visible through the upper floor windows, the fire department's streams of water fighting a losing battle against the inferno. He pulled out his phone, miraculously intact, in his pocket, and checked the time. 8:43 p.m. If he hurried, he could still make it home for at least one chapter of Harry Potter. But first he stopped at the edge of the crowd and turned back. Victoria Sterling was being loaded into an ambulance, still giving orders, still oblivious to anything but her own importance. She would never know, never care to know, that the man she'd dismissed had a silver star in a box under his bed. That he'd lost his wife to cancer 2 years ago and was raising a little girl alone. That he worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat. That he'd run into a burning building to save her, not because it was his job, but because that's what he did. He saved people even when they didn't deserve it. A hand touched his shoulder. Marcus turned to find an older black woman in a paramedic's uniform, her face creased with years of seeing the best and worst of humanity. "I saw what you did," she said softly. "All of it. The old man, the child, her." She paused. "That was heroic." Marcus shrugged. "Just did what anyone would do." "No?" she said firmly. No, they wouldn't, and the way she treated you. She shook her head. Some people don't deserve heroes. Everyone deserves to live, Marcus replied simply. The woman studied him for a long moment. What's your name, Wata? Marcus Thompson. She pulled out a business card. I'm Denise Williams, Fire Department Paramedic Supervisor. That woman might not appreciate what you did, but plenty of others saw it. The old man you helped. That's Judge Patterson, retired from the Illinois Supreme Court. The mother whose child you found. She's a reporter for the Tribune. Sometimes good deeds don't go unnoticed, even when they go unthanked. Marcus took the card but said nothing. He was thinking of Emma, of the story he'd read to her tomorrow about heroes and villains and the choices that define us. As he walked away from the burning hotel, he didn't see the young man with the phone who had captured everything. The rescue, the dismissal, the quiet dignity of his departure. He didn't see the way Judge Patterson was already speaking to reporters, his aged voice carrying across the crowd. That man is a hero. I don't care what uniform he wears. Marcus Thompson disappeared into the Chicago night, just another invisible man in a city full of them. But invisible things have a way of becoming visible when light shines in the right direction. And tonight a fire had been lit that would illuminate more than just the Grand Meridian Hotel. The walk home took 40 minutes. Marcus could have taken the L, but he needed the air needed to let the October wind clean the smoke from his lungs and the bitter taste from his mouth. His hands throbbed. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the burns were making themselves known. Tomorrow, he'd have to figure out how to work with bandaged hands. Tonight, he just needed to get home to Emma. The apartment building in Bridgeport was a far cry from the Grand Meridian's marble and gilt. 5 stories of fading brick, a front door that required a shoulder check to open properly, stairs that creaked their age with every step. But it was home, and it was theirs, and the neighbors looked out for each other in a way that all the money in Victoria Sterling's bank accounts couldn't buy. Mrs. Chen opened her door before Marcus could knock, her weathered face creasing with concern. Marcus, we saw the news, the hotel fire. Were you there? I'm okay, Mrs. Chen. How's Emma? Asleep on my couch, the little angel. She tried to wait up for you but couldn't make it past 8:30. She peered at his hands. Those need treatment. Tomorrow, Marcus said. Thank you for watching her. Always, dear boy, always. Marcus carried Emma to their apartment 2 doors down, her small body warm and trusting against his chest. She stirred slightly as he tucked her into bed, mumbling something about dragons and magic wands. He sat on the edge of her bed for a long moment, watching her breathe, remembering another night 2 years ago when he'd sat in the same spot wondering how he'd raise her alone. Caroline had been the strong one, the one with the college degree and the career plans. Marcus had been happy to work with his hands to support her dreams while she supported theirs. When the cancer took her, it had taken his compass too. But Emma was his North Star, now the fixed point around which everything else orbited. He kissed her forehead gently, then went to the bathroom to finally examine his hands. 2nd-degree burns, definitely. They'd blister by morning, make tomorrow's shift at the warehouse agony. But he'd worked through worse. You did what you had to do. His phone buzzed, a text from his supervisor at the hotel. Saw the news, you okay? Take tomorrow off if you need. Marcus almost laughed. Tomorrow off meant a day without pay, meant coming up short on rent, meant telling Emma they'd have to wait another month for those new school shoes she needed. Heroes couldn't afford days off. He was wrapping his hands in gauze from the medicine cabinet supplies left over from Caroline's treatments because even medical tape was too expensive to waste when his phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Thompson, this is Channel 7 News. We have video of your heroic rescue at the Grand Meridian tonight. We'd like to interview you for the morning show. Marcus hung up. Then he turned off his phone. Tomorrow would bring what it brought. Tonight he just wanted to sit in his daughter's room and watch her sleep safe and whole and unaware that her father had been a hero and been treated like nothing in the span of the same heartbeat. But the world wouldn't let him rest. Not tonight. An hour later, the buzzer rang, then rang again, and again. Marcus finally answered, ready to tell whatever reporter had found his address to leave him alone. Mr. Thompson. The voice was older, dignified. This is Judge Patterson. You helped me tonight at the hotel. I'm downstairs with someone who needs to speak with you. It's important. Marcus almost ignored it. But Judge Patterson, he remembered the old man's frightened eyes, the way his thin hand had gripped Marcus's arm as he'd helped him to safety. 1 minute, Marcus said. He checked on Emma still sleeping, then headed downstairs. Judge Patterson stood in the dim lobby light, his suit still showing signs of the night's chaos. Beside him was a younger woman, early 30s maybe, with intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Mr. Thompson, this is Sarah Chen. No relation to your neighbor, I'm told. She's the mother whose boy you found tonight. Marcus recognized her now, though she'd been wild with panic then. Your son, okay? Thanks to you, yes. Her voice was thick with emotion. Mr. Thompson, I'm a senior reporter at the Tribune. What happened tonight, what you did, and how that woman treated you, it's already going viral. The video has 2 million views in the past hour. I didn't ask for... I know, she interrupted gently. But sometimes stories choose us. Judge Patterson has been telling me about your military service. Purple Heart, Silver Star. Marcus said nothing. Judge Patterson cleared his throat. Son, I spent 40 years in law seeing people at their best and worst. What I saw tonight, both your heroism and her cruelty, it matters. It says something about who we are as a society, about who we value, and who we overlook. I just want to be left alone, Marcus said quietly. I have a daughter to raise. And that's exactly why this matters, Sarah said. Mr. Thompson, Victoria Sterling, is one of the most powerful CEOs in Chicago. She's famous for her ruthlessness for stepping on people to get ahead. But she's never been caught on video showing her true colors like this. People need to see what Marcus interrupted. That rich people can be cruel, that janitors are invisible until someone needs saving. Everyone already knows that. No, Judge Patterson said firmly. They need to see that heroes come in all uniforms. That character isn't about what you wear or what you earn, but what you do when the building's on fire. Sarah pulled out her phone, showing Marcus the video. He watched himself lift the beam carry Victoria out, lay her gently on the ground. He watched her dismissal, heard the gasps from the crowd, saw himself walk away with quiet dignity. The comments below were already in the thousands, overwhelmingly supportive of him, condemning of her. This isn't about revenge, Sarah said. It's about truth. Will you let me tell your story? The real story, not just tonight, but who you are. Marcus thought of Emma, of the shoes she needed, of the college fund that existed only in his dreams, of the 3 jobs that barely kept them afloat. He thought of Victoria Sterling, who would wake up tomorrow in a private hospital room and never think twice about the man who'd saved her life. One condition, he said finally. You leave my daughter out of it. No pictures, no interviews, nothing. She's been through enough. Agreed, Sarah said immediately. Judge Patterson extended his hand. Mr. Thompson, I've met presidents and kings in my career. You, sir, are worth more than all of them combined. Marcus shook his hand, the burns making him wince. Tomorrow everything would change. But tonight he climbed the stairs back to his apartment, checked on Emma one more time, and finally collapsed into bed. Somewhere across the city, Victoria Sterling was being treated in a VIP suite at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, already on the phone with her lawyers about suing the hotel. She hadn't seen the video yet. She hadn't seen the comments calling her the worst person in Chicago or everything wrong with America. She hadn't yet felt the weight of public opinion turning against her like a tide. But she would. The Grand Meridian Hotel burned until dawn, finally collapsing in on itself like a dying giant. 17 people had been injured, but miraculously, no one had died. The investigation would later reveal faulty wiring in the parking garage, years of deferred maintenance to save money corners cut by owners who cared more about profit than safety. Marcus woke to Emma shaking his shoulder, her eyes wide with worry. Daddy, your hands! The bandages had soaked through with blood and fluid from the burns. Emma, 7 years old and already too experienced with medical emergencies from her mother's illness, ran to get fresh gauze. Does it hurt? She asked as she helped him rewrap them, her small fingers gentle and careful. A little sweet pea, but I'm okay. Mrs. Chen says you're a hero. She says you saved people from a fire. Marcus looked at his daughter. Caroline's eyes, his stubborn chin, a mix of both their hearts. I just helped some people who needed it. That's what heroes do, Daddy. From the mouths of babes, Marcus thought. He made Emma breakfast scrambled eggs and toast the bread a day old from the discount bakery, but she never complained and got her ready for school. The normalcy of the routine felt like armor against whatever was waiting outside their door. But normal was already gone. When they stepped outside, Mrs. Chen was there, along with several other neighbors. Someone started clapping, then another. Soon the entire hallway was applauding, and Emma pressed closer to her father's leg, confused and a little scared. "What's happening, Daddy?" "I don't know, baby." But he did know. The video had done its work while they slept. The city had woken up to the story of Marcus Thompson, the invisible hero, and Victoria Sterling, the ungrateful CEO. The narrative was irresistible in its clarity: good versus evil, humility versus arrogance, the server versus the served. At Emma's school, the principal was waiting. "Mr. Thompson, we've been getting calls all morning, news stations, newspapers. We've told them all that Emma is off limits, as you requested." "Thank you." "Mr. Thompson," the principal added softly, "what you did last night, we're proud to have Emma as our student. Heroes raise heroes." Marcus walked to work, the warehouse where he loaded trucks from noon to 8, because the hotel job was clearly over now. But when he arrived, there was a crowd outside. News vans, reporters, cameras. His supervisor, Tony, met him at the side entrance. "Marcus, Jesus Christ, why didn't you tell me you were a war hero?" "It never came up." "Never came, Marcus. You have a silver star. You saved 6 people last night." "I need to work, Tony. I can't afford—" "Paid leave," Tony said firmly. 2 weeks full pay. Corporate called. "They're proud to have you as an employee," they said. "They want to do a press release." "I just need to work." "Marcus," Tony grabbed his shoulders gently. "Brother, look at me. You've been grinding yourself to dust for 2 years. Take the win. Let people help you for once." But Marcus had forgotten how to accept help. Accepting help meant admitting you couldn't handle it alone, and he'd promised Caroline he'd handle it. His phone had been ringing nonstop. He finally turned it back on to find hundreds of messages. Interview requests, job offers, someone claiming to be a Hollywood agent, and then one that made him pause. "Mr. Thompson, this is Colonel James Mitchell, U.S. Army, retired. I served in Afghanistan during your deployment. I remember hearing about you, the sergeant who carried Private Williams 2 miles under fire. I'm now on the board of directors for Veterans United Foundation. We need to talk. There are opportunities here, ways we can help you that have nothing to do with charity and everything to do with what you've earned." Marcus listened to the message twice. Colonel Mitchell. He remembered the name, remembered the man who'd pinned the silver star on his chest in a ceremony that felt like a lifetime ago. He was about to call back when another text came through, this one from Sarah Chen at the Tribune. "Victoria Sterling just held a press conference. You need to see this." Sarah had included a link. Marcus clicked it, standing in the warehouse break room while his coworkers pretended not to watch. Victoria Sterling stood behind a podium at Sterling Industries headquarters, her arm in a sling, a carefully placed bandage on her forehead. She was immaculate despite the injuries, every hair in place makeup perfect. "Last night, I experienced a traumatic event." She began, her voice carrying just the right amount of vulnerability. "The fire at the Grand Meridian was terrifying, and in my shock and pain, I may have spoken without thinking. I want to be clear. I am grateful to everyone who helped during the evacuation, including the maintenance worker who assisted me." The maintenance worker, not Marcus Thompson, not the hero, the maintenance worker. She continued, "However, I want to address the video that's circulating. It's been edited to remove context. I was in severe pain, possibly concussed, certainly in shock. My words have been taken out of context and weaponized against me." This is what happens in our social media age. A moment of human weakness becomes a viral sensation. Marcus watched her play victim, watched her spin the narrative, and felt something he rarely felt anymore: anger. Not the hot anger of youth, but the cold, deep anger of someone who'd seen too much injustice to be surprised by it anymore. The reporters were asking questions now. "Ms. Sterling, have you reached out to thank Mr. Thompson personally?" "I've been focused on my recovery. I'm sure the hotel will handle any appropriate recognition for their employee." Their employee. Like he'd been on the clock. Like saving her had been just another item on his maintenance checklist. "Ms. Sterling, Were you aware that Mr. Thompson is a decorated veteran, that he has a Purple Heart and Silver Star? For the first time, Victoria's composure cracked slightly. No, I wasn't aware, but that doesn't change the fact that this video has been edited to create a false narrative. What's false about it? Another reporter called out. You did tell him to get his hands off you. You did ask if he knew who you were. Again, I was in shock. I'm not going to apologize for being human, for having a moment of confusion after nearly dying. Marcus turned off the video. He'd heard enough. The warehouse break room fell silent as Marcus switched off his phone, his coworkers exchanging uncomfortable glances. Tony cleared his throat, searching for words that wouldn't sound hollow after what they'd just witnessed. Outside, the reporters were still gathering their voices, carrying through the thin walls like distant thunder promising a storm. That woman, Tony finally said, shaking his head. She's really going to play it that way. Marcus said nothing, just stared at his bandaged hands. The burns throbbed with each heartbeat, a rhythmic reminder of last night's choices. He thought about Victoria Sterling standing at that podium, transforming herself from perpetrator to victim with the same ease she probably transformed companies ruthlessly, efficiently, without conscience. Marcus, Tony continued, you don't have to take this. The truth is on video. Everyone sees what they want to see. Marcus interrupted quietly. She's got PR firms, lawyers, a whole machine to reshape reality. He gestured around the break room with its peeling paint and flickering fluorescent lights. I've got work to do. Not today, you don't. I meant what I said about the paid leave. Go home, brother. Figure out your next move. Marcus wanted to argue, but the exhaustion hit him suddenly completely like diving into deep water. He nodded, gathered his things, and headed for the side exit. But Tony caught his arm. There's something else. A woman called earlier, said she's from some veterans organization. Left her number, said it was urgent. He handed Marcus a piece of paper. Maybe call her back. You've been carrying this alone too long. The side alley was mercifully empty of reporters. Marcus walked quickly, keeping his head down, muscle memory from Afghanistan, where being noticed could mean death. But Chicago's dangers were different here. Being noticed meant becoming public property. Your pain transformed into content, your story no longer your own. His phone rang. Sarah Chen. Mr. Thompson, I know you just saw the press conference. I need to tell you something. My editor wants to run a full feature on you tomorrow, front page, but I won't do it without your permission. Why? Marcus asked, genuinely puzzled. You've got the story. The video speaks for itself. Because you're not a story to me. You're a person. A father. Someone who's been through enough. So I'm asking, do you want to tell your side? The real story. Marcus stopped walking, standing in the shadow of an overpass where the city noise became white static. What's the real story, Ms. Chen, that rich people treat poor people like dirt? That's not news. No, Sarah said softly. The real story is that you ran into that building when everyone else ran out. That you've been running into buildings your whole life in Afghanistan and Chicago, everywhere people needed saving. The real story is that you keep doing it even when the world keeps telling you you're invisible. I am invisible. Not anymore. That's what Victoria Sterling doesn't understand. She made you visible, and now Chicago wants to see who you really are. Marcus thought about Emma, about the apartment with its leaking faucets and drafty windows, about the 3 jobs that barely kept them afloat. Visibility meant scrutiny. It meant people digging into Caroline's death, into his struggles, into every failure and compromise that survival demanded. I need to think about it, he said. Fair enough. But Mr. Thompson, whatever you decide, you should know that Judge Patterson has started something. He's been calling every contact he has, telling them about you. And that colonel who called you James Mitchell, he's serious about helping. These aren't charity offers. These are people who recognize what you are. What am I? The real thing. In a city full of facades, you're the real thing. After Sarah hung up, Marcus stood in the underpass shadow for a long moment, watching the city flow past. Cars full of people rushing to important meetings, making important deals, living important lives. None of them knowing that last night a janitor had decided they were all worth saving. He called the number Tony had given him. A woman answered on the first ring. Veterans United Foundation, this is Director Patricia Reeves. This is Marcus Thompson. You called my work Mr. Thompson. Her voice brightened with genuine warmth. Thank God, Colonel Mitchell asked me to reach out immediately. We've seen the video, of course, but more importantly, we've pulled your service record. Sergeant Thompson, what you did in Afghanistan, what you did last night, this is who you are. Ma'am, I appreciate. Please let me finish. We have a program privately funded specifically for veterans like you. Single parents, combat decorated, struggling with civilian transition. It's not charity, Sergeant. It's recognition. It's what you've earned but never claimed. What kind of program? Full scholarship for your daughter's education from now through college. Job placement and security consulting, real money, Mr. Thompson, using your actual skills. Housing assistance to get you into a better neighborhood. And counseling support if you wanted to process everything you've been carrying. Marcus felt his knees weaken. He leaned against the concrete pillar, the cold seeping through his shirt. Why now? Because Colonel Mitchell saw the video and recognized something we've known for years we're failing our best people. You shouldn't be working 3 jobs. Your daughter shouldn't be wondering if there's enough money for new shoes. You gave everything for this country, and then you came home and kept giving. It's time someone gave back. I don't take charity. It's not charity, Sergeant. It's overdue compensation. You have a silver star, a Purple Heart, 3 bronze stars, and a service record that reads like an action movie, yet you're mopping floors and loading trucks. That's not right, and we both know it. Marcus closed his eyes, seeing Emma's face that morning, the worry in her eyes as she wrapped his burned hands. What's the catch? No catch. But there is one thing Colonel Mitchell wants to meet with you today. He's in Chicago at the Drake Hotel. Can you make it by noon? Marcus checked his phone. 10:47 a.m. I'll be there. He was about to hang up when Patricia added, Sergeant Thompson. My son served in Afghanistan, 3rd Battalion. He came home because of men like you, men who didn't leave anyone behind. This isn't charity. This is gratitude. The walk to the Drake Hotel took 30 minutes, each step taking Marcus further from his world and closer to the one Victoria Sterling inhabited. The buildings grew taller, the cars more expensive, the very air seeming to thin as if poor people weren't meant to breathe it. The Drake's doorman looked at Marcus's appearance, the worn jacket, the bandaged hands, the shadow of soot still clinging to his skin despite his morning shower, and almost stepped forward to redirect him. But something in Marcus's bearing, the way he moved with purpose, despite his exhaustion, made the doorman simply open the door. The lobby was everything the Grand Meridians had been before the fire marble and gold crystal chandeliers, the soft murmur of wealth conducting its business. Marcus felt the familiar invisibility trying to settle over him, but he pushed it away. He wasn't here to clean. He was here by invitation. Sergeant Thompson. Marcus turned to find a man in his 60s, silver-haired ramrod, straight. The posture never left, no matter how long you'd been out. Colonel James Mitchell, retired, looked exactly as Marcus remembered from that ceremony years ago. Colonel. They shook hands. Mitchell's grip firm but careful of the bandages. Let's go somewhere we can talk. They sat in the hotel's oak-paneled bar, empty at this hour, except for a bartender polishing glasses. Mitchell ordered coffee for both of them, then studied Marcus with eyes that had seen too much to be fooled by surfaces. You know, I've been watching your story unfold since last night, Mitchell began. The video's at 10 million views now. Victoria Sterling's press conference backfired spectacularly. The internet has turned her into a meme. Do you know who I am? Is trending. I don't care about the internet, sir. No, I don't suppose you do, but you should care about this she's mobilizing. Her lawyers are already sending cease and desist letters to people sharing the video. Her PR firm is working overtime to flip the narrative. She's going to try to destroy you, Sergeant. Why? She got what she wanted. She's alive. Mitchell laughed, but there was no humor in it. You really don't understand people like her, do you? You wounded her in the only place she can feel it, her image. Her carefully constructed image as a self-made success story, a powerful woman who earned everything she has. Last night, for one moment, the mask slipped. Everyone saw who she really is. And worse, they saw it in contrast to who you are. I'm nobody special. Bullshit. The word cracked like a rifle shot. You carried Private Williams 2 miles under fire. You went back for Lieutenant Morrison when the convoy was ambushed. You saved 6 people last night, including the woman now trying to destroy you. You're raising a daughter alone after losing your wife. You work 3 jobs without complaint. You're everything people claim to admire but actually fear. Fear? You make them look bad by comparison. Your existence is an indictment of their excuses. Mitchell pulled out a tablet showing Marcus a series of articles. Look at this. Sterling Industries stock dropped 3 points this morning. 3 major clients have called expressing concerns about their association with her. The board is meeting in emergency session tonight. That's not my problem. It's about to be. She's going to come after you claim defamation, emotional distress, whatever her lawyers can dream up. She needs to discredit you to save herself, which is why you need our help. I don't want to fight her. I just want to be left alone. Mitchell leaned forward. Sergeant, with all due respect, that ship has sailed. You're in this whether you want it or not. The only question is whether you'll have support or face it alone. Before Marcus could respond, his phone rang. Emma's school. Mr. Thompson. This is Principal Davies. There's no emergency. Emma's fine, but we have a situation. There are reporters at the school trying to get pictures of Emma. We've locked down, but you might want to come pick her up. Marcus stood so fast his chair scraped against the floor. I'll be right there. Mitchell stood too. I'll drive you. You don't have to. Sergeant, you're not alone anymore. Whether you accept our help or not, starting right now, you're not alone. My car's outside. The ride to Emma's school was silent except for Mitchell's periodic phone calls mobilizing resources Marcus didn't know existed. By the time they arrived, there were 2 security guards flanking the school entrance, and the reporters had been moved across the street. Principal Davies met them at the door. Mr. Thompson, I'm so sorry. We've never had anything like this happen. Where's Emma? In my office. She's scared, doesn't understand why people want to take her picture. Marcus found his daughter sitting in the principal's big chair, her legs swinging, not quite reaching the ground. When she saw him, she launched herself into his arms. Daddy! There are people with cameras. Mrs. Davies won't let me go to recess. It's okay, Sweet Pea. We're going home. But I have art class after lunch. We're painting butterflies. Marcus's heart broke a little. 7 years old, and her biggest concern was missing art class. He wanted to preserve that innocence, that normalcy, but the world seemed determined to strip it away. We'll paint butterflies at home. Okay, better butterflies. As they prepared to leave, Mitchell made a call. Within minutes, a plan was in place. Security would escort them out the back, a car would take them home, and guards would watch their building. All of it arranged with military efficiency, the machinery of privilege working for them instead of against them for once. In the car, Emma pressed against Marcus's side, unusually quiet. Finally, she asked, Daddy, are we in trouble? No, baby, we're not in trouble. Then why is everyone acting weird? Marcus struggled for an answer that would make sense to a 7-year-old. You know how sometimes in your books someone does something good and everyone wants to know about it? Like when Harry saved everyone from the basilisk. Exactly like that. Last night, Daddy helped some people, and now everyone wants to know about it. But Harry didn't like being famous. It made everything harder. Out of the mouths of babes, Marcus thought again. You're right, it does make things harder, but we'll figure it out okay. Emma nodded, then asked the question Marcus had been dreading. The lady on Mrs. Chen's TV said you saved someone who wasn't nice to you. Why would you save someone mean? Mitchell, sitting in the front seat, turned slightly to hear the answer. Marcus chose his words carefully. Because, Sweet Pea, what someone does doesn't change what we should do. We do the right thing because it's right, not because of who we're doing it for. Even if they're mean. Especially if they're mean. That's when doing right matters most. Emma considered this with the seriousness only children could bring to moral questions. That's hard. Yeah, baby, it's hard. They were 3 blocks from home when Mitchell's phone rang. He listened, his face darkening, then handed the phone to Marcus. You need to hear this. It was Patricia Reeves from the Veterans Foundation. Sergeant Thompson, I just got a call from Sterling Industries' legal department. They're threatening to sue us if we provide you with any assistance. They claim it would be interfering with pending litigation. What litigation? She's filing charges against you. Assault, emotional distress, and this is creative theft of services for leaving your job post during the emergency. Marcus felt the world tilt. Assault. I saved her life. She's claiming you touched her without consent, causing additional injuries. It's complete bullshit, pardon my language, but she's got a legal team that could drain you dry just fighting it. Marcus looked at Emma, still pressed against his side, drawing patterns on the foggy window with her finger. Everything he'd built, as fragile as it was about to come crashing down. What do I do? Fight, Patricia said simply. We've got lawyers too, and more importantly, you've got the truth. But Marcus had learned long ago that truth was just another weapon, and usually the person with the most lawyers determined how it was aimed. When they reached the apartment building, Mrs. Chen was waiting in the hallway with several other neighbors. The old woman's face was fierce with protective anger. That woman on the news, she spat, saying you hurt her. We all saw the video. The whole world saw. It's okay, Mrs. Chen. No, it's not okay. She pulled out her phone, showing him something. Look what my granddaughter found. It was a social media page, #Team Marcus, with hundreds of thousands of members already. People sharing the video, sharing their own stories of being dismissed, disrespected, made invisible by people with power. Veterans posting about their struggles. Single parents talking about working multiple jobs. Janitors, security guards, food service workers. All the invisible people suddenly visible rallying around Marcus's story. You're not alone, Mrs. Chen said firmly. That woman, she thinks money makes her powerful. This? She shook the phone. This is power. People power. Mitchell stepped forward. She's right, Sergeant. I've been monitoring the situation. Sterling Industries phones are reportedly down from the volume of calls. Their social media is being bombarded. 3 board members have already called for an emergency meeting about Victoria's leadership. I didn't want this, Marcus said quietly. Any of this. No, Mitchell agreed. You just wanted to save lives. But sometimes, Sergeant, saving one life starts something bigger. Sometimes one act of heroism exposes a system that needs changing. They made it into the apartment, Emma immediately running to her room to get her art supplies, determined to paint those butterflies she'd missed at school. Marcus slumped on the couch, the weight of the last 24 hours crushing down on him. Mitchell sat across from him. Talk to me, soldier. I can't afford lawyers. I can barely afford rent. If she sues me, she won't get the chance. Mitchell pulled out his phone, showing Marcus a message. That's from General Patricia Hoffman, retired. She's now a senior partner at one of Chicago's biggest law firms. She's offering to represent you pro bono. That's from Senator James Wright, Veterans Affairs Committee. He wants to hold hearings on the treatment of veterans in the civilian workforce. That's from... Stop. Marcus held up his bandaged hand. Please, I need to think. Mitchell studied him for a long moment. You know what your problem is, Sergeant. You've forgotten that accepting help isn't weakness. It's what units do, they support each other. You've been running solo ops for too long. I had Caroline. We were a unit. And she's gone. I'm sorry for that, sorrier than you know, but you're not honoring her memory by grinding yourself into dust. You think she'd want this for you. For Emma. Marcus didn't answer because the truth hurt too much. Caroline would have been furious at his pride at his stubborn refusal to accept help. She'd always said his need to save everyone but himself would be his downfall. Emma emerged from her room with paper and watercolors, setting up at the kitchen table with serious concentration. Marcus watched her work, her tongue poking out slightly as she focused Caroline's expression exactly. Daddy, what color are butterfly wings? Whatever color you want them to be, sweet pea. Can they be all the colors? Every single one. As Emma painted, Mitchell made calls, arranging things with quiet efficiency. Legal representation, security media strategy, building a defensive position around Marcus and Emma, like he was establishing a fire base in hostile territory. Sarah Chen called. Mr. Thompson, I'm sorry to bother you, but something's happened. Victoria Sterling has given an exclusive interview to CNN. It airs in an hour. My sources say she's going full victim mode, claiming she's being cyberbullied, that this is a coordinated attack on a successful woman. Let her say what she wants. There's more. She's apparently showing medical records claiming injuries from your rescue. And, Sarah paused. She's hired a private investigator. They're digging into your past, your wife's death. Everything. Marcus felt his hands clench the burns, screaming in protest. They could come after him all they wanted, but Caroline's memory, Emma's privacy, that was sacred ground. Mr. Thompson, are you there? I'm here. I know you didn't want to do an interview, but if you don't control your narrative, she will. She's got the money and platform to reshape reality. Unless you speak up, her version becomes the truth. Marcus looked at Emma, now painting a butterfly with impossible rainbow wings. She deserved better than to have her father's character assassinated, her mother's memory exploited. But tonight, prime time. Just Emma telling your story. Not just the fire, but who you are. Why you served. Why you saved people. Why you couldn't walk past someone in danger, even if that someone was Victoria Sterling. Where? Your apartment if you're comfortable. Show people your real life, not the mansion they probably imagine war heroes live in. Marcus almost laughed at that. Fine, but I have conditions. Name them. No questions about my wife beyond basic facts. No footage of Emma's room, and I want to see the questions in advance. Done. Mr. Thompson. This is the right choice. People need to hear from you. After Sarah hung up, Mitchell stood to leave. I'll have security outside tonight. And Sergeant, when you do this interview, just be yourself. That's what terrifies Victoria Sterling most, your authenticity in the face of her artifice. The afternoon passed in a blur of preparation. Emma painted 6 butterflies, each more colorful than the last. Marcus helped her with homework, made dinner spaghetti with sauce from a jar, but Emma called it the best sketty ever. Normal moments in an abnormal day. At 5 p.m., Victoria Sterling's CNN interview aired. Marcus didn't want to watch, but Mitchell, who'd returned with the security team, insisted he needed to know what he was up against. Victoria sat in a pristine studio, her injuries strategically visible, the sling, the bandage, subtle bruising on her temple that hadn't been there this morning. She spoke in measured tones, her voice breaking at calculated moments. I've built my company from nothing, she said, dabbing at her eyes. I've worked 18-hour days, sacrificed everything. And now, because of one moment where I was confused and in pain, I'm being destroyed by a mob. The interviewer, clearly sympathetic, nodded along. The video has been brutal, the online response particularly vicious. It's been horrific. Death threats, calls for my resignation. All because I didn't react perfectly in a moment of trauma. And the man in the video, he's being treated like a saint, but nobody asks why he waited so long to help me. Nobody asks if he could have prevented my injuries with faster action. Marcus stood abruptly, unable to watch more. She was rewriting history in real time, turning his hesitation into negligence, his heroism into opportunism. Emma looked up from her homework. Daddy, why is the lady on TV lying? Marcus turned to find his daughter had been watching from the doorway. Her face was scrunched in confusion, the way it got when the world didn't make sense. Sometimes people lie when they're scared, baby. What's she scared of? The truth. Sarah Chen and her camera crew arrived at 7 p.m., transforming the small apartment into a makeshift studio. They were respectful, professional, keeping their promise not to film Emma's room or include her in any shots. Just be yourself, Sarah said as they prepared. No performance, no script. Just talk to me like we're having coffee. The interview began simply. Sarah asked about his service and Marcus gave brief factual answers. She asked about the fire, and he walked through it moment by moment, his voice steady and unemotional. Then she asked the question that changed everything. Mr. Thompson, Victoria Sterling suggests you could have acted faster, prevented her injuries. How do you respond? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, looking at his bandaged hands. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of every life he'd saved and lost. In Afghanistan, I learned that you can't save everyone. You can only save who's in front of you, who you can reach. Mrs. Sterling says I waited too long. I was pulling an elderly man to safety. I was reuniting a child with his mother. I was doing what I've always done, trying to save as many as possible. And when you saw her, I saw a human being who needed help. That's all. Not a CEO, not someone rich or poor, just someone who was going to die if I didn't act. Despite how she treated you, do you regret saving her? Marcus looked directly at the camera. No, because my actions aren't dependent on someone else's character. I didn't save Victoria Sterling, the CEO. I saved a person. The fact that she turned out to be someone who could dismiss me so easily, that's about her, not about me. You have a daughter. What do you want her to learn from this? For the first time, emotion cracked through Marcus's composure. I want her to know that doing right isn't about recognition or gratitude. It's about being able to look at yourself in the mirror and know you did what you could. I want her to understand that everyone has value, whether they're mopping floors or running companies. And I want her to know that her dad, whatever his failures, tried to leave the world a little better than he found it. Sarah asked a few more questions, then something unexpected. Mr. Thompson, is there anything you'd like to say to Victoria Sterling? Marcus considered, then shook his head. No, she knows what happened. She knows who pulled her out. What she does with that knowledge is her choice. As the crew packed up, Sarah pulled Marcus aside. That was powerful. It'll air at 10 right after Sterling's interview replays. The contrast. People will see it. After everyone left, Marcus sat with Emma as she got ready for bed. She was quieter than usual, processing the day's strangeness. Daddy, she said as he tucked her in, the lady on TV made you sad. A little bit sweet pea. Why did you save her if she's mean? Marcus sat on the edge of her bed, choosing his words carefully. You know how in your books the heroes always save everyone, even the villains? Yeah, but the villains usually turn good after. In real life, they don't always turn good. But we save them anyway because that's what makes us heroes, not them. Emma considered this. That seems unfair. It is unfair. But fairness isn't why we do good things. Then why? Marcus kissed her forehead. Because someone has to. Because if we only help people who deserved it, who would decide what deserving means, better to help everyone and let them decide what to do with that help. As Emma drifted off to sleep, Marcus's phone buzzed with a message from Mitchell. Heads up. Sterling's lawyers just filed an emergency injunction to stop your interview from airing. It won't work, but she's trying. Marcus stepped onto his small balcony, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Victoria Sterling was in her penthouse, surrounded by lawyers and publicists trying to reshape reality to her will. And here he stood in a 2-bedroom apartment with peeling paint and a leaking faucet with nothing but the truth. His phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Thompson. This is James Morrison. Marcus's breath caught. Lieutenant Morrison, whose life he'd saved in Afghanistan, who'd gone on to become a successful tech entrepreneur. Lieutenant, not anymore Sergeant. Listen, I just saw the news. What this woman is doing to you. I owe you my life, Marcus. Everything I've built, my company, my family, none of it exists without you. It's time I paid that debt. There's no debt. There is, and I'm not the only one. Williams is here with me. So is Patterson, not the judge, our Patterson from the unit. We've all done well, Marcus, and we've all been watching you struggle in silence, too proud to ask for help. That ends now. I know what you don't want, but what about what Emma needs? What she deserves? Let us help Marcus. You've been carrying everyone else long enough. Let someone carry you for a change. Marcus felt something break inside him, some wall he'd built around his pride and pain. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the accumulated weight of 2 years of grinding poverty, or maybe it was just the simple sound of brotherhood in Morrison's voice. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. Morrison's voice carried through the phone with the same steady confidence that had made him a natural leader even as a young lieutenant. We've already set things in motion, Marcus. Williams has contacts at every major news outlet. He's been feeding them your service record, the real stories behind those medals. Patterson's law firm is preparing a countersuit against Sterling for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. And me, I've got something special planned. What kind of special? Marcus asked, wary of his old comrade's initiative. He knew these men, they didn't do anything halfway. You'll see tomorrow morning. Just make sure you're watching the news around 9. And Marcus, that interview you just did, it's going to change everything. After Morrison hung up, Marcus stood on the balcony until the October cold drove him inside. He checked on Emma once more. She'd kicked off her blankets as usual, one arm flung above her head in unconscious abandon. He covered her gently, then went to his own room where sleep eluded him entirely. At 10 p.m. his interview aired. Marcus watched it alone in his darkened living room, cringing at seeing himself on screen. But as it progressed, His phone began buzzing with messages. Mrs. Chen, you made this old woman cry. Tony from the warehouse. Proud to know you, brother. Even Principal Davies. Your daughter has an extraordinary father. The interview had been edited skillfully, intercutting his words with footage from the fire, his military service records, photos Caroline's sister had provided of happier times. When it reached the part about Emma, about wanting her to know her father tried to leave the world better, the image shifted to show the wall of his apartment where Emma's artwork hung dozens of pictures, each signed with a crooked Emma T and a heart. But it was the contrast with Victoria's earlier interview that struck hardest. Her calculated tears versus his quiet dignity. Her accusations versus his simple recounting of facts. Her designer suit versus his worn flannel shirt. The narrative was clear without anyone having to spell it out. Authenticity versus artifice, service versus selfishness, hero versus victim playing villain. Marcus's phone rang. Sarah Chen. The response is unprecedented, she said without preamble. Our website crashed from traffic. #T Marcus is the #1 trending topic globally, and Mr. Thompson Victoria Sterling's board has called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. That's not my concern. It should be. My sources inside Sterling Industries say several board members were appalled by her CNN interview. They think she's damaging the brand. There's talk of a vote of no confidence. Marcus felt no satisfaction at this news. He hadn't wanted to destroy anyone, he'd just wanted to save a life and go home to his daughter. There's something else, Sarah continued. We've been getting calls all evening. Job offers for you, real ones from major companies. A GoFundMe. Someone started has raised over $300,000. And the Veterans Foundation, they're moving forward with their support despite Sterling's threats. They said, and I quote, "We don't abandon our own because some CEO throws a tantrum. I can't accept money from strangers. Mr. Thompson, with all due respect, you've been accepting less than you deserve your whole life. Maybe it's time to stop." After Sarah hung up, Marcus sat in the darkness, overwhelmed by the tide of change rushing toward him. He'd spent 2 years in survival mode, work, parent, sleep, repeat, but the possibility of something different, something better, felt almost threatening in its unfamiliarity. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You don't know me, but I'm a janitor at a law firm downtown. Watching you stand tall when that woman tried to make you small, you stood for all of us. Thank you." Another, "Single mom, here? I work 3 jobs too. Seeing someone like us shown as the hero for once means everything." And another, "Afghanistan Vet 2nd Battalion. You saved my cousin in Kandahar. He never forgot. Neither will we." Message after message from invisible people suddenly visible, finding their voice in his story. Marcus read them until his eyes burned, until Emma's alarm clock showed 2 a.m., until the weight of their hope and recognition became almost too heavy to bear. He finally fell asleep on the couch, phone still in his hand, and dreamed of Caroline. She was sitting in their old apartment, the one they'd shared before Emma was born, before the cancer, before everything fell apart. "You always were too stubborn for your own good," she said, her voice carrying that mix of exasperation and affection he missed so desperately. "I'm trying care. I'm trying to do right." "I know, baby, but doing right includes accepting help. It includes showing Emma that strong people lean on others sometimes. It includes believing you deserve good things." "I don't know how." "Learn, for her, if not for yourself." Marcus woke to Emma shaking his shoulder, sunlight streaming through windows he'd forgotten to curtain. "Daddy, there's people outside, a lot of people." Marcus looked out to find news vans, reporters, and surprisingly, supporters. Someone had made signs, "Marcus Thompson is a hero. Janitors deserve respect. We stand with Marcus." Mrs. Chen was on the building's front steps, fiercely guarding the entrance, brandishing her cane at any reporter who got too close. "Why are all those people here?" Emma asked, pressed against his side. "They want to tell our story, sweet pea." "Is it a good story?" Marcus hugged her close. "I hope so." His phone rang. Colonel Mitchell. "Sergeant, you need to turn on Channel 7, now." Marcus found the remote, flipped to the local news. The anchor was mid-sentence. Extraordinary development in the Marcus Thompson story. James Morrison, CEO of Morrison Tech, and an Afghanistan veteran whose life Thompson saved, has just announced a remarkable initiative. The screen cut to Morrison standing at a podium flanked by several other veterans Marcus recognized: Williams Patterson, even Kowalski, who'd lost his leg in the same fight where Marcus earned his Silver Star. "My name is James Morrison." He began, his voice carrying the authority of success earned through struggle. 12 years ago, Sergeant Marcus Thompson carried me 200 yards through enemy fire after our convoy was ambushed. I'd taken shrapnel to my chest and legs. The medic said I would have died in minutes without his intervention. Morrison paused, looking directly at the camera. "I built a successful company because Marcus Thompson gave me the chance to come home. Williams here became a doctor because Marcus pulled him from a burning Humvee. Patterson became a teacher because Marcus wouldn't leave him behind during a retreat. We all built lives because one man refused to let us die." Williams stepped forward. "We've watched Marcus struggle in silence since his wife's death, too proud to ask for help from the men whose lives he saved. That ends today." Morrison returned to the microphone. Effective immediately, Morrison Tech is creating the Thompson Initiative, a program providing full scholarships for children of single-parent veterans, comprehensive health care for veterans working multiple jobs, and emergency financial support for those facing hardship. The initial funding is $10 million provided jointly by those of us whose lives Marcus saved. The reporters erupted with questions, but Morrison raised his hand for silence. "We're also announcing that any company that wants to participate in this initiative can join us. We've already heard from Microsoft, Amazon, and Boeing. They recognize what we've known all along, that heroes like Marcus Thompson shouldn't be invisible. They shouldn't be working 3 jobs to survive. They are the best of us, and they deserve better from us." Patterson took the microphone next. "To Victoria Sterling and her lawyers, let me be clear. I'm a senior partner at Patterson Reeves and Associates. We're representing Sergeant Thompson pro bono, and we have a message: if you come after this man, you come after all of us. And lady, you don't have enough lawyers for that fight." The screen cut back to the anchor, who seemed genuinely moved. "We've just received word that Sterling Industries board is meeting as we speak. Sources suggest Victoria Sterling's position as CEO is in serious jeopardy." Marcus turned off the TV, overwhelmed. Emma was watching him with those 2 wise eyes. "Daddy, are you crying?" He realized. For the first time since Caroline's funeral, he was crying. "Happy tears, baby. Sometimes people cry when good things happen too." "The men on TV were your friends from the army." "Yeah, Sweet Pea, my brothers. They said nice things about you. They're good men." Emma considered this. "Mrs. Chen says you're too proud. She says pride makes people stupid. Are you going to let them help us eat out of the mouths of babes yet again?" "Yeah, baby, I think I am." The phone rang. It was Patricia Reeves from the Veterans Foundation. "Sergeant Thompson, I'm calling with news. Given recent developments and Sterling's legal threats, we've decided to accelerate our support. A team is en route to your apartment now, with immediate assistance, new clothes for you and Emma, temporary housing in a secure location while this media circus dies down, and a check for immediate expenses. No strings, no conditions. Just support for someone who's earned it 1,000 times over." "I don't know what to say." "Say yes, Sergeant. For once in your life, just say yes." Marcus looked at Emma, who was watching him with hopeful eyes. "Yes, thank you." Within an hour, their small apartment was transformed into a center of activity. Patricia Reeves arrived personally, a force of nature in her 60s, with silver hair and eyes that had seen enough to be surprised by nothing. She took one look at the apartment, the water stains on the ceiling. Emma's drawings covering the cracks in the walls, the furniture held together with duct tape and hope, and her jaw tightened. "This ends today," she said quietly to Marcus. "Whatever happens with Sterling, with the media, with everything else, you and Emma living like this ends today." A team of assistants began packing their belongings with military efficiency. Emma watched wide-eyed as her clothes went into new suitcases instead of garbage bags, her toys into proper boxes instead of broken baskets. "Where are we going?" she asked Patricia. Somewhere safe and comfortable while we sort out your new permanent home, Patricia replied, kneeling to Emma's level. Would you like your own room, one where you can paint on an easel instead of the kitchen table? Emma's eyes went wide. Really? Really? Your daddy's friends want to make sure you have everything you need. As they prepared to leave, Mrs. Chen appeared with a container of dumplings and tears in her eyes. You come back and visit, yes. You don't forget us when you're living better. We won't forget. Marcus promised, hugging the old woman who'd been more family than neighbor. You watched Emma when I had nothing to pay you with. That's not something I forget. Bah. Mrs. Chen waved him off, wiping her eyes. Emma is like granddaughter. You don't pay family. They were escorted out through a side entrance to avoid the media crush, but Marcus caught a glimpse of the crowd out front. It had grown not just reporters now, but supporters. Veterans in their old uniforms, janitors and maintenance workers from buildings all over Chicago. Parents holding signs saying single parents are heroes too. The temporary housing turned out to be a furnished apartment in a secure building downtown, the kind of place Marcus had only seen from the outside. 2 bedrooms, a real kitchen, windows that actually sealed heat that worked. Emma ran from room to room, marveling at everything from the dishwasher to the bathtub that didn't have rust stains. Daddy, look, the toilet has 2 buttons. Marcus found himself laughing, really laughing at his daughter's joy over a dual flush toilet. Patricia smiled, watching them. It's temporary, she said. We're working on permanent housing somewhere near a good school for Emma, with a yard maybe, somewhere that feels like home. This is too much. No, Sergeant, it's not nearly enough. But it's a start. Marcus's phone buzzed with a news alert. Victoria Sterling was holding another press conference. Against his better judgment, he turned on the apartment's large TV. Victoria stood outside Sterling Industries headquarters, but something was different. Gone was the controlled CEO of yesterday's interviews. Her face was haggard, her usual perfect composure cracked. Behind her, Marcus could see security guards and what looked like boxes being carried out. I want to address the events of the past 48 hours, she began, her voice lacking its usual command. The board of Sterling Industries has asked for my resignation, which I've refused to provide. This is a witch hunt, a mob mentality destroying a woman who built an empire from nothing. A reporter called out, Miss Sterling, what about the video? What about how you treated Marcus Thompson? I've already explained I was in shock and pain. My words were taken out of context. But you've shown no gratitude. You've tried to sue the man who saved your life. Victoria's composure cracked further. Gratitude. You want me to show gratitude? Fine. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for doing your job. Happy. Is that what this mob wants to hear? Another reporter, Ms. Sterling Morrison Tech, just announced they're pulling a $50 million contract with Sterling Industries unless you step down. Amazon and Microsoft are suggesting they'll do the same. How do you respond? For the first time, real fear flickered across Victoria's face. That's illegal. That's collusion. My lawyers will... Your lawyers have withdrawn from the case, another reporter interrupted. Patterson Reeves and Associates announced they won't face off against a war hero, and your firm dropped you as a client this morning. Victoria stood frozen, the pillars of her carefully constructed world crumbling in real time on national television. This isn't over, she said, but her voice had lost its power. I won't be destroyed by some janitor and his sob story. The moment the words left her mouth, she knew she'd made a fatal error. The reporters exploded with questions, but Victoria was already retreating into the building, her remaining security forming a protective wall. Marcus turned off the TV. He felt no satisfaction, only a tired sadness. Victoria Sterling had built her life on a foundation of stepping on others, and now that foundation was giving way. But her destruction hadn't been his goal, he just wanted to save a life. Emma tugged on his sleeve. Daddy, the angry lady on TV seems scared. I think she is Sweet Pea. Maybe she needs someone to save her again, but from herself this time. Marcus looked at his daughter in wonder. 7 years old, and she understood something that most adults missed, that the real rescue Victoria Sterling needed wasn't from a fire, but from the prison of her own making. Patricia's phone rang. She listened, her eyes widening, then handed it to Marcus. You need to take this. It's the mayor. Mr. Thompson. This is Mayor Rodriguez. I'm calling to personally thank you for your heroism the other night. The city of Chicago owes you a debt. I didn't do anything special, sir. That's where you're wrong. You showed us who we should be, people who run toward danger to help others, regardless of who those others are. I'm calling to inform you that the City Council has unanimously voted to award you the Citizens Medal of Honor. The ceremony is tomorrow if you're willing. Marcus looked at Emma, who was listening with rapt attention. I'd be honored, sir. Good. And Mr. Thompson, bring your daughter. The city needs to see that heroes raise heroes. After the mayor hung up, the afternoon became a whirlwind of preparation. Patricia's team brought clothes for Marcus and Emma, not fancy but clean, new, properly fitting. Emma got a dress with butterflies on it that made her spin in circles just to watch the skirt flare. That evening, as Marcus tucked Emma into bed in their temporary new home, she asked, Daddy, is our life changing? Yeah, baby, I think it is. Good change or bad change? Good, I hope. Will you still be you? Marcus kissed her forehead. Always sweet pea. Money meddles, none of that changes who we are inside. Good, because I like who you are inside. As Emma drifted off to sleep, Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, exhausted by the day's events, but something made him pick up. Mr. Thompson? The voice was different, smaller, uncertain. This is Victoria Sterling. Marcus said nothing, waiting. I wanted... She paused, and he could hear her struggling. My board has given me 24 hours to resign or be terminated with cause. My lawyers have abandoned me. 3 major clients have already pulled their contracts. I've lost everything. Ms. Sterling, I know you have no reason to listen to me. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I need you to understand something. Her voice cracked. I've been fighting my whole life, fighting to be taken seriously, to be seen as more than just a woman in a man's world. I built walls, became hard, forgot that success doesn't require cruelty. Why are you telling me this? Because in that fire, when I thought I was going to die, do you know what I thought about? Not my company, not my money. I thought about how I had no one who would mourn me beyond what I could do for them. And then you appeared, someone who didn't know me, didn't need anything from me, and you saved me anyway. It's what anyone would have done. No, she said firmly. No, it's not. I wouldn't have. That's what terrifies me. I wouldn't have saved someone like me. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Miss Sterling, what do you want? I don't know. Forgiveness, understanding, a chance to apologize properly. She laughed bitterly. I called to destroy you because you represented everything I'd convinced myself didn't matter. Kindness, selflessness, genuine human decency. Your existence challenged every choice I'd made to get where I am. And where are you now? Alone in a penthouse that feels like a mausoleum, watching everything I built disappear because I showed the world who I really am. She paused. Mr. Thompson, I'm sorry. Not the strategic apology my lawyers would have written, but genuinely sorry. You saved my life, and I repaid you with cruelty. Your daughter is lucky to have a father who shows her that strength and kindness aren't opposites. Thank you for saying that. The interview tomorrow, the ceremony. You deserve it. All of it. Everything good coming your way, you've earned it. Ms. Sterling. Victoria. I think after everything you can call me Victoria. Victoria, what are you going to do now? She was quiet for so long, Marcus thought she'd hung up. Then, I don't know. For the first time in my life, I honestly don't know. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it's time I learned what you already know, that there's more to life than winning. After she hung up, Marcus stood in the darkness of the unfamiliar apartment, processing the conversation. Victoria Sterling had climbed so high she'd forgotten what the ground looked like, and now she was falling. But maybe, just maybe, the fall would teach her what the climb never could, that the view from the top meant nothing if you stood there alone. His phone buzzed with a text from Morrison. Saw Sterling's press conference disaster. Couldn't happen to a more deserving person. You okay? Marcus typed back, yeah. Just tired. Rest up, Sergeant. Tomorrow, Chicago celebrates its real heroes, and you're first in line. Marcus checked on Emma one more time, still asleep, one arm wrapped around the stuffed bear Caroline had given her years ago. He thought about the journey that had brought them here, from that burning hotel to this moment of possibility. He thought about Victoria Sterling alone in her penthouse, finally facing the cost of her choices. He thought about Morrison and Williams and Patterson brothers in arms who'd refused to let him fall. Tomorrow there would be ceremonies and speeches, medals, and recognition. But tonight, in the quiet of an apartment that actually had working heat with his daughter, safe in the next room, and the promise of something better on the horizon, Marcus Thompson finally allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, good things could happen to good people. The city lights twinkled outside the window, Chicago spreading out like a tapestry of dreams and struggles. Somewhere out there, janitors were finishing their shifts. Single parents were tucking in their children. Veterans were fighting battles no one could see. They were all invisible until someone chose to see them. Marcus had been seen. And in being seen, he'd made others visible too. It wasn't the legacy he'd planned, but maybe it was the one the world needed: proof that heroes don't always wear capes or designer suits. Sometimes they wear janitor's uniforms and carry mops instead of swords. Tomorrow would bring what it would bring. But tonight, for the first time in 2 years, Marcus Thompson fell asleep without worry, without the weight of tomorrow's survival pressing on his chest. He dreamed of Caroline again, but this time she was smiling. "You did good, baby," she said. "You did real good." And for once, Marcus believed her. The morning arrived with a clarity that October in Chicago rarely offered, the sky a brilliant blue that made the city's steel and glass sparkle like promises kept. Marcus woke to find Emma, already dressed in her butterfly dress, sitting at the kitchen table of their temporary apartment, carefully drawing something with the new colored pencils Patricia's team had provided. "What are you working on, sweet pea?" Emma looked up with serious eyes. "A thank you card for all the people helping us. Mrs. Chen taught me that gratitude should be shown, not just felt." Marcus looked at the card, a crayon drawing of figures holding hands, surrounding two smaller figures in the center. Above it, in Emma's careful printing, "Thank you for seeing my daddy." The simplicity of it broke something open in Marcus's chest. His 7-year-old daughter understood what this was really about: not heroism, not viral videos, but the simple act of being seen, valued, recognized as human. Patricia Reeves arrived at 8 sharp with a small team preparing them for the ceremony. She took one look at Marcus's face and seemed to understand his emotional state. "It's overwhelming," she said simply. "Going from invisible to visible overnight, but you're handling it with grace." "I don't feel graceful. I feel like I'm drowning in kindness." After nearly drowning in struggle, maybe that's not the worst problem to have. As they prepared to leave, Marcus's phone rang. It was Tony from the warehouse. "Marcus, brother, you're not going to believe this. Some businessman just walked in here, said he owns the company that owns our company. He took one look at how we operate, asked about you, then announced he's implementing something called the Thompson Protocol. Full benefits for all part-time workers, childcare assistants, and get this, a program where veterans get priority hiring and advancement opportunities." "Tony, that's your doing, brother. You being you, showing the world what we're worth. The ripples, man. You threw a stone in the pond, and the ripples are spreading everywhere." After Tony hung up, Patricia smiled. "That's the 4th company this morning to announce similar initiatives. Sterling Industries' stock price has dropped 12%, while every company associated with supporting you has seen increases. The market is speaking." They traveled to City Hall in a convoy of black SUVs, Emma pressed against the window, watching the city pass by. As they got closer, the crowds grew thicker, people lining the streets holding signs, waving American flags. Veterans in uniform, janitors in their work clothes, single parents with children on their shoulders. "Daddy, are all these people here for you? For us, baby, for everyone who's been invisible." At City Hall, Mayor Rodriguez met them personally, his handshake firm and his eyes direct. "Mr. Thompson, I want you to know this isn't just ceremony. The City Council has also approved a resolution, the Marcus Thompson Act, requiring all city contractors to provide living wages and benefits to all employees, including subcontracted maintenance staff." "Sir, I don't know what to say." Say you'll keep being who you are. The city needs more Marcus Thompsons. The ceremony itself was held in the council chambers packed to capacity. Marcus spotted familiar faces, Mrs. Chen in her best dress, Judge Patterson near the front, Sarah Chen with her press badge, but also strangers, hundreds of them, all looking at him with something he'd rarely seen directed his way: respect. Mayor Rodriguez took the podium. We're here today to honor someone who reminds us what heroism really looks like. Not the Hollywood version, but the real thing: quiet, consistent, selfless service to others. He recounted the fire Marcus's service record, his struggle as a single father. But then he said something that made Marcus straighten in his chair. But we're also here to acknowledge our failure. Marcus Thompson should never have been working 3 jobs to survive. A decorated veteran, a single father, a man who's given everything to his country and community, reduced to invisibility because we as a society decided that some people matter less than others. Today, we don't just honor Marcus Thompson. We commit to seeing and valuing all the Marcus Thompsons among us. When Marcus was called forward, Emma walked with him, her small hand in his. The medal was heavy gold and silver with the city seal, but it was Emma's proud smile that made his eyes burn with unshed tears. "Mr. Thompson," the mayor said, "would you like to say anything?" Marcus looked out at the crowd, at the cameras, at his daughter beside him. He thought of Victoria Sterling alone in her penthouse. He thought of his brothers from the unit who'd refused to let him sink. He thought of Caroline, who would have been so proud and so exasperated that it took all this for him to accept help. "I'm not comfortable with speeches," he began, his voice carrying despite its quietness. "But I want to say this: what happened at that hotel wasn't extraordinary. Every day people run toward danger instead of away from it. Nurses work double shifts to save lives. Teachers spend their own money on supplies for kids who need them. Parents work multiple jobs to keep their families afloat. They're all heroes. I just happened to be the one caught on camera." He paused, looking down at Emma. "My daughter asked me why I saved someone who was mean to me. I told her we do right because it's right, not because of who we're doing it for. But I want to add something to that. We do right because that's how we change the world, one action at a time, one person at a time, one choice at a time." The applause was thunderous, but Marcus barely heard it. He was focused on Emma, who was beaming up at him like he'd hung the moon. As they returned to their seats, his phone vibrated with a message. He glanced at it, then froze. It was from Victoria Sterling, watching the ceremony. "You deserve every bit of recognition. I've made a decision. Can we meet?" "Not for me, for something bigger." Marcus showed the message to Patricia, who frowned. "Be careful. Desperate people do desperate things." But something in Marcus knew this was different. Victoria hadn't sounded desperate last night, she'd sounded broken, and sometimes broken was the first step to being rebuilt. After the ceremony, there was a reception Marcus endured rather than enjoyed. Everyone wanted to shake his hand, tell him their story, thank him for representing them. Emma stayed close, overwhelmed by the attention, but handling it with a grace that reminded him painfully of Caroline. Judge Patterson approached his aged face, warm with approval. "Son, I've presided over thousands of cases, seen humanity at its worst and best. What you've done, not just the rescue, but how you've handled everything since, that's character. Real character. Thank you, sir. I hear Morrison and the others have set up quite a support system for you." "They have. More than I deserve." The judge's expression sharpened. "Stop that. Stop diminishing what you've earned. You know what your problem is, Thompson. You've confused humility with self-denial. There's nothing noble about refusing help when you need it. The noble thing is accepting it gracefully and using it to help others in turn." Before Marcus could respond, Sarah Chen appeared with urgent energy. "Mr. Thompson, something's happening. Victoria Sterling just announced she's holding a press conference at 2 p.m. My sources say she's resigning, but there's more. She's apparently planning something unprecedented." Marcus looked at his phone again at Victoria's message. "I need to go somewhere. Can someone watch Emma?" Patricia stepped forward. "I'll watch her. But Marcus, be careful. This woman tried to destroy you 48 hours ago." "I know, but I think she's trying to destroy herself now. And maybe that's the first honest thing she's done in years." Marcus took one of the city's security detail cars to the address Victoria had texted him. Not Sterling Industries, not her penthouse, but a small coffee shop in a neighborhood that straddled the line between gentrification and authenticity. She was sitting in a corner booth, baseball cap pulled low, no makeup, looking nothing like the CEO who'd commanded boardrooms and destroyed careers. She looked up when he approached, and Marcus saw something he hadn't expected: genuine humility. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. "I wasn't sure you would." Marcus sat across from her. "What's this about Victoria?" She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup like it was anchoring her to reality. "I'm resigning today. The board's giving me a generous exit package to go quietly $40 million. Enough to disappear, start over, pretend this never happened." "That's what you wanted to tell me." "No." She looked up, meeting his eyes directly. "I want to give it away. All of it. To your initiative, the one Morrison is running. I want the money to go to people like you, people I've stepped on my whole career without even noticing." Marcus sat back, stunned. "Victoria, that's necessary. You asked me last night what I was going to do. I've been thinking about it all night. I built an empire by being ruthless, by seeing people as resources to exploit or obstacles to overcome. I looked at you in that hotel lobby 100 times and never saw you. You were just part of the furniture, like that decorative beam that nearly killed me." She pulled out a folder, sliding it across to him. "Legal documents. Irrevocable transfer of my exit package to the Thompson Initiative with one condition." "What condition?" "That some of it goes to programs for executives and entrepreneurs, teaching them to see the people who make their success possible. Call it the Victoria Sterling Center for Ethical Leadership, or something equally ironic. Let my failure become someone else's lesson." Marcus looked at the papers, then at Victoria. "Why? Really? Why?" She was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee. "Because for 38 years I've been climbing a ladder, never looking down at who I was stepping on to get higher. And when I finally got to the top, I realized I was alone up there. No friends, no family, no one who cared about Victoria, the person, rather than Sterling, the CEO." She continued, her voice stronger. "When you pulled me from that fire, you saved my life. When you walked away after I dismissed you, you saved my soul. Because if you'd thanked me, if you'd groveled or asked for a reward, I could have dismissed you as just another person wanting something. But you didn't want anything. You just wanted to go home to your daughter. And that's when I realized you had everything that mattered and I had nothing that did." "Victoria, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for friendship. I'm asking for the chance to do one right thing with all the wrong I've accumulated. Let my money help people I would have ignored. Let my fall be someone else's ladder up." Marcus looked at this woman who'd had everything and realized she had nothing, who'd reached the pinnacle only to discover it was a prison. "What will you do after?" "I don't know. Maybe teach. Maybe volunteer. Maybe just learn how to be a human being instead of a human doing." She managed a small smile. "Your daughter at the ceremony, the way she looked at you. I've had board members look at me with fear, respect, even awe, but never with the love I saw in her eyes. That's worth more than all the money in my accounts." Marcus made a decision that would have seemed impossible days ago. "The press conference, don't do it alone." "What? You're resigning, giving away $40 million, essentially admitting you were wrong. The media will crucify you, but if you're standing next to the person you wronged, if we're showing unity instead of division, the story changes." Victoria's eyes widened. "You'd do that? After everything? You saved me once, too, you know." "What? When?" "Right now. By showing me that people can change, that redemption is possible, that sometimes the worst thing that happens to us becomes the best thing that happens for us. You're giving away $40 million to help people like me. The least I can do is stand next to you while you do it." Victoria's composure finally cracked completely, tears flowing freely down her face. "I don't deserve this." "Nobody deserves grace. That's what makes it grace." They sat in silence for a moment, two people from different worlds finding common ground in their shared humanity. Finally, Victoria wiped her eyes, straightened her shoulders. Some habits died hard and nodded. "The press conference is at 2, Sterling Industries headquarters." "I'll be there." As Marcus stood to leave, Victoria called after him. "Marcus." That interview you gave about doing right, regardless of who it's for, my whole life has been transactional. Everything had a price, a return on investment. You're the first person I've met who just did right because it was right. Thank you for showing me that's possible. Marcus returned to City Hall to find Emma engaged in an intense conversation with Judge Patterson about butterflies of all things. She ran to him when he appeared. "Daddy, Judge Patterson has a butterfly garden. He says we can visit when we get our new house." "That sounds wonderful, sweet pea." Patricia approached with a concerned expression. "Marcus Morrison just called. He's heard about Sterling's press conference. He thinks it's a trap." "It's not. She's resigning and donating her exit package to the initiative. All of it. All 40 million. Patricia sat down heavily. That's extraordinary. That could help thousands of veterans, single parents, struggling families. She wants to make amends. Marcus, be careful. Redemption is messy, and the media loves a villain more than a reformed sinner. At 1:45, Marcus stood outside Sterling Industries, the same building he'd walked past 100 times, never imagining he'd enter through the front door. The media was already assembled, hungry for the next chapter in the drama. Victoria met him in the lobby, the real lobby, not the service entrance. She was dressed simply professionally, but without the armor of her usual power suits. She looked younger, more vulnerable, more human. "Ready?" he asked. "No, but that's probably a good thing. I've been ready for everything my whole life, and look where it got me." They walked to the podium together, and the media erupted. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, the feeding frenzy beginning before they'd said a word. Victoria took the microphone first. "3 days ago, a man saved my life. I repaid his heroism with cruelty, his dignity with disdain. I showed the world who I really was, and the world rightfully rejected that person." She paused, looking at Marcus. "I built Sterling Industries by being ruthless, by seeing people as assets or obstacles, never as humans. I succeeded by every metric that matters in business, profit, growth, market share. And I failed by every metric that matters in life: kindness, connection, compassion." The room was silent now, everyone leaning in. "Effective immediately, I'm resigning as CEO of Sterling Industries. The board has granted me a $40 million exit package, which I'm donating in its entirety to the Thompson Initiative, a program supporting veterans, single parents, and the invisible workers who keep our city running." The questions exploded, but Victoria raised her hand. "Mr. Thompson has something to say." Marcus stepped to the microphone, uncomfortable but determined. 3 days ago, I did what anyone should do. I helped someone in danger. The fact that it became extraordinary says more about our society than about me. But what's happening now with Victoria's donation, with companies implementing fair wage policies, with the city recognizing invisible workers, this is the real rescue. Not pulling one person from a fire, but pulling thousands from poverty. A reporter called out, "Mr. Thompson, do you forgive Miss Sterling?" Marcus looked at Victoria, then back at the crowd. "Forgiveness isn't mine to give or withhold. Actions matter more than words. Ms. Sterling is taking action. That matters." Another reporter, "Ms. Sterling, is this just damage control, trying to salvage your reputation?" Victoria took the microphone. "My reputation is destroyed, and deservedly so. This isn't about salvaging anything. It's about salvaging anyone, the single parents working 3 jobs, the veterans struggling with civilian life. The invisible people I spent a career ignoring. If my downfall can become their uplift, then maybe I'll have done one thing worth doing." "What will you do now?" someone called out. "Learn," Victoria said simply. "Learn how to see people instead of profits. Learn how to build up instead of tear down. Learn how to be the person Mr. Thompson already is, someone who runs toward people in need instead of stepping over them." As the press conference ended and they walked back into the building together, Victoria stopped Marcus with a hand on his arm. "Thank you for standing with me. I didn't deserve that." "Oh, you keep saying that word, deserve. Maybe we should stop thinking about what people deserve and start thinking about what they need." "And what do you think I need?" Marcus considered. "A second chance, same as anyone. I've had dozens of chances. I wasted them all. Then make this one count." They parted ways in the lobby, Victoria to clean out her office, Marcus to return to Emma. As he walked out into the Chicago afternoon, his phone buzzed with messages. Morrison. Did she really give it all away? Patricia. The donation is confirmed, $40 million. Sarah Chen. This story just became something bigger than anyone imagined, but it was the message from an unknown number that stopped him cold. Mr. Thompson, my name is Grace Hartford. I'm a janitor at a law firm downtown. Today, because of you, because of what's happened, my employer announced full benefits and a living wage for all maintenance staff. My daughter can go to college now. Thank you for making us visible. Marcus stood on the sidewalk, letting the October wind cut through his jacket, feeling the weight and wonder of how one moment choosing to run into a fire instead of away from it had created an avalanche of change. He thought about Victoria Sterling packing up her office, preparing for a life without the power she'd spent decades accumulating. He thought about the veterans who would get help, the single parents who would find support, the invisible workers who would become visible. His phone rang. Emma calling from Patricia's phone. Daddy, when are you coming back? Right now, sweet pea. Good. I want to show you something. What's that? I drew a picture of the butterfly lady. The butterfly lady. The sad lady from TV. She needs butterflies, I think. People who are sad need beautiful things to look at. Marcus smiled, thinking of Victoria Sterling being called the butterfly lady. You're right, baby. Everyone needs beautiful things. Will you give it to her? If I see her again. You will. People who save each other always see each other again. It's like a rule. As Marcus made his way back to City Hall, he thought about Emma's words. People who save each other. Maybe that's what this had all been about, not him saving Victoria from a fire, but all of them saving each other from the various things that trapped them. Victoria from her isolation. Him from his pride. The invisible workers from their invisibility. The city moved around him, the same Chicago he'd known his whole life, but somehow different now. The janitor emptying trash cans at the bus stop nodded at him, recognition between people who knew what it was like to be unseen. The security guard at the corner building straightened a little pride in his bearing. The single mother herding 3 kids onto the bus caught his eye and smiled a smile that said, "We see each other now." Marcus Thompson had been invisible for so long he'd forgotten what being seen felt like. But now, walking through Chicago with October light slanting between buildings, he realized that visibility wasn't just about being noticed. It was about noticing others, about creating a world where everyone could be seen, valued, recognized as human. Tomorrow, there would be new challenges. Emma would need school supplies and college savings and therapy for losing her mother. The Thompson Initiative would need structure and oversight and careful management. Victoria Sterling would need to learn how to be human without the armor of corporate power. The city would need to follow through on its promises to value all workers. But today, Marcus Thompson walked through Chicago visible and whole, carrying his daughter's butterfly picture for a woman learning to transform. Carrying the weight of $40 million that would transform thousands of lives, carrying the knowledge that sometimes the best rescues were the ones where everyone saved everyone else. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Thank you for the second chance. I won't waste it. He typed back, none of us will. The weeks that followed blurred together like watercolors in rain, each day bringing changes Marcus could barely process. The temporary apartment had given way to a modest house in Oak Park with a real yard where Emma could play and enough bedrooms that she could have friends for sleepovers, a luxury they'd never imagined. The Thompson Initiative had officially launched with Morrison at the helm, its offices bustling with veterans seeking help, single parents applying for support, and invisible workers suddenly finding doors opening that had been sealed shut for generations. Marcus stood in his new kitchen on a Thursday morning 6 weeks after the fire, making Emma's breakfast and marveling at the simple pleasure of not worrying about whether they had enough milk to last the week. The burns on his hands had healed, leaving only faint scars that Emma sometimes traced with her finger, calling them Daddy's hero marks. Can I wear my butterfly dress to school? Emma asked from the doorway, already dressed in the outfit despite asking permission. It's getting cold for a summer dress, Sweet Pea. But Victoria's coming today for the assembly. I want her to see it. Victoria Sterling, or Victoria Hayes, as she'd returned to her maiden name, had become an unexpected presence in their lives. After her resignation and donation, she'd disappeared for 2 weeks. then returned transformed. Gone were the power suits and perfect makeup, replaced by simple clothes and a quietness that spoke of someone learning to listen instead of command. She'd started volunteering at the Thompson Initiative, doing intake interviews with applicants using her business acumen to help veterans write resumes and single parents navigate bureaucracy. The woman who'd once stepped over janitors now spent her days sitting beside them, learning their stories, helping them find paths forward. You can wear it with your warm leggings and cardigan. Marcus compromised. Emma beamed and ran to change, leaving Marcus alone with his coffee and the morning paper. The headline read, "Thompson Initiative passes 1,000 families helped." Below was a photo from last week's fundraiser, Morrison, Williams, Patterson, and the other veterans flanking Marcus, and surprisingly Victoria, who'd been working behind the scenes to secure corporate donations. His phone rang. Morrison. "Morning, Sergeant. You ready for today?" Today was significant. Emma's school had invited Marcus and Victoria to speak at an assembly about kindness and redemption, about how people could change, about the importance of seeing everyone's value. It would be the first time they'd appeared together publicly since the press conference 6 weeks ago. "As ready as I'll ever be." "Victoria's nervous," Morrison said. "She called me 3 times last night, worried about facing kids. Says adults she can handle, but children see through facades." "She's right about that." "Marcus, I need to tell you something. The board at Sterling Industries, they want to hire you." Marcus nearly dropped his coffee. "What?" "Head of Community Relations and Employee Advocacy. 6 figures, full benefits company car. They say they need someone who understands their workers from the ground up." "Jim, I don't know anything about corporate." "You know about people. That's what they need. Think about it. You could change that company from the inside, make sure no janitor there ever feels invisible again." After Morrison hung up, Marcus stood in his kitchen in his house with his daughter safe and happy, and tried to process how far they'd come. 6 weeks ago, he'd been nobody. Now Sterling Industries wanted to hire him for more money than he'd ever dreamed of making. Emma appeared properly layered for the weather, her butterfly dress visible beneath her cardigan. "Do I look okay?" "You look perfect, baby." "Do you think Victoria will like my dress?" "I think she'll love it." The drive to school was quiet, Emma humming to herself while Marcus navigated the familiar streets that somehow looked different now. The weight of survival had lifted, replaced by the stranger weight of possibility. He could take the Sterling Industries job, secure Emma's future completely. Or he could continue working directly with the initiative, hands-on with the people who needed help. Both paths had merit. Both scared him for different reasons. At the school, Victoria was already waiting in the principal's office, looking uncomfortable in the cheerful environment of children's artwork and motivational posters. She'd lost weight since the resignation, her face showing the strain of transformation, but her eyes were clearer than Marcus had ever seen them. "Emma," she said, genuine warmth in her voice. "Is that your butterfly dress?" Emma twirled, making the skirt flare. "I wanted you to see it. Daddy says you're becoming a butterfly too." Victoria's eyes glistened. "Did he?" "Well, I'm trying. It's harder than it looks." Principal Davies entered all business and warmth. "We're so grateful you both agreed to this. The students have been following the story, and they have lots of questions about making good choices about redemption, about how to treat people." The gymnasium was packed with students from kindergarten through 5th grade, their energy barely contained by their teacher's presence. Marcus and Victoria sat on the small stage, looking out at hundreds of young faces, black, white, brown, every shade of humanity that made Chicago what it was. Principal Davies introduced them, giving a simplified version of their story. Then she opened the floor for questions, and small hands shot up everywhere. A 2nd grader near the front, "Mr. Marcus, were you scared in the fire?" "Very scared," Marcus admitted. "But sometimes we do things even when we're scared because they're the right things to do." A 4th grader. "Ms. Victoria, why were you mean to Mr. Marcus?" Victoria took a breath, choosing her words carefully. "Because I forgot something important, that every person has value no matter what job they do. I thought being powerful made me more important than others. I was wrong." A kindergartner barely able to see over the microphone. "My mommy cleans offices at night. Is she a hero too?" "Absolutely," Marcus said firmly. Your mommy makes sure people have clean, safe places to work. That's heroic. The questions continued innocent and penetrating in the way only children's questions could be. Then a fifth grader stood up, her question different from the others. Ms. Victoria, my dad says leopards don't change their spots. He says you're just pretending to be good now to make people like you again. Is that true? The gymnasium fell silent. Even the youngest children seemed to sense the weight of the question. Victoria stood up, walked to the edge of the stage, and sat down on its edge closer to the students' level. That's a brave question, she said softly. And your dad might be right. I don't know if I've really changed or if I'm just trying to change. But here's what I do know. Mr. Marcus showed me that the person I wasn't the person I wanted to be. So every day now I try to be better than I was yesterday. Sometimes I fail, but I keep trying. Because that's all any of us can do, try to be better. She looked directly at the girl who'd asked the question. Maybe leopards can't change their spots. But people aren't leopards. We can choose to be different. It's hard and scary, and sometimes I want to go back to being the old me because she knew how to win. But winning doesn't matter if you're alone at the finish line. Emma suddenly stood up from her place in the front row, her small voice carrying in the silence. You're not alone. You have us now. Victoria's composure cracked, tears flowing freely. Marcus moved to sit beside her on the stage edge, and for a moment they were just two people who'd saved each other in different ways, surrounded by children who understood redemption better than most adults. After the assembly, as they walked to the parking lot, Victoria stopped Marcus with a hand on his arm. Morrison told me about the Sterling Industries offer. Of course he did. You should take it. Marcus looked at her in surprise. You think so? That company needs someone like you, someone who sees people instead of resources. I spent 15 years making it a machine. You could make it human again. What about you? What's next for Victoria Hayes? She smiled, a real smile that transformed her face. I'm starting a nonprofit, teaching business skills to people transitioning out of minimum wage jobs. Morrison's helping with the structure, and several of my old competitors have agreed to fund it, probably thrilled to see me doing anything other than competing with them. That's amazing, Victoria. It's something. A start anyway. She paused, looking back at the school. Your daughter saved me, you know. That day at the press conference, when she called me the butterfly lady, when she said I needed beautiful things, she was right. I'd surrounded myself with expensive things, but nothing beautiful, nothing that mattered. They were interrupted by Emma running toward them, having been released from class. She was carrying something carefully in her hands, a butterfly she'd made from pipe cleaners and tissue paper. This is for you, she told Victoria solemnly. For your office at your new job. Victoria knelt down to Emma's level, accepting the butterfly with the reverence usually reserved for holy relics. It's perfect. I'll put it where I can see it every day. Good. Butterflies need to be seen. That evening, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, solid wood now bought from a second-hand store, but sturdy and real-looking at the offer letter from Sterling Industries. The salary was more than he'd made in 5 years combined. The benefits would secure Emma's future through college and beyond. The position would put him in rooms where decisions were made, where he could advocate for thousands of invisible workers. But it would also put him back in the building where Victoria had built her empire, where every hallway would echo with the footsteps of someone trying to change. It would mean suits instead of flannels, meetings instead of direct service politics, instead of pure purpose. Emma was doing homework across from him, her tongue poking out in concentration. She'd adapted to their new life with remarkable ease, though sometimes Marcus caught her looking around their house with wonder, as if checking that it was still real. Daddy, what's a redemption? Where did you hear that word, Sweet Pea? Everyone keeps saying it about Victoria, that she wants redemption. Marcus thought about how to explain such a complex concept to a 7-year-old. It's when someone who did wrong things tries to make up for them by doing right things. Like when I broke Mrs. Chen's vase and saved my allowance to buy her a new one. Exactly like that, but bigger. Emma considered this. Is Victoria going to be okay? I think so. She's trying hard. Good. Sad butterflies who become happy butterflies are the most beautiful ones. Marcus's phone rang. It was Colonel Mitchell. Sergeant, I'm calling with news. The Pentagon has been following your story. They want to create a national version of the Thompson Initiative. Full funding congressional support the works. But they need someone to be its face, someone whose story resonates. They want you. Marcus felt the ground shifting again. Colonel, you're just the man who changed how America sees its invisible heroes. Marcus, this is bigger than Chicago now. Veterans in every state need what you've started. Single parents everywhere need hope. This could change millions of lives. I need to think about it. Of course. But Marcus, this is what Caroline would have wanted for you to take your pain and turn it into purpose, to take your story and make it a ladder others can climb. After Mitchell hung up, Marcus sat in his kitchen, surrounded by choices he'd never imagined having. The Sterling Industries job would change one company. The National Initiative would change the country. Both would take him away from the direct service he'd found at the local level. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Whatever you decide, you've already changed the world. The rest is just scope. Another from Morrison. No wrong choices here, brother. Just different ways to serve. And one from Sarah Chen. Whatever you choose makes tomorrow's front page. No pressure. Marcus laughed. Really laughed at the absurdity of it all. 6 weeks ago, his biggest decision was whether they could afford name-brand cereal. Now he was choosing between opportunities that would have seemed like fantasy before the fire. Emma looked up from her homework. What's funny, Daddy? Life's sweet pea. Life is funny. Good funny or bad funny? Good funny. Definitely good funny. That night, after Emma was asleep, Marcus walked out to his small backyard, and looked up at the stars barely visible through Chicago's light pollution. Somewhere in the city, Victoria was probably awake too, planning her nonprofit, trying to rebuild herself into someone worthy of the second chance she'd been given. Somewhere Morrison and the others were working late at the initiative processing applications changing lives. Somewhere invisible workers were finishing their shifts, going home to families who would benefit from the changes rippling out from one night's fire. His phone rang. An unknown number, but Marcus answered anyway. These days, unknown numbers brought opportunities rather than bill collectors. Mr. Thompson, this is Rebecca Martinez. I'm a single mother working maintenance at Northwestern Hospital. I just wanted to call and thank you. Because of what you started, I got promoted to shift supervisor today. Full benefits, enough money to move to a safer neighborhood. My kids can have their own rooms now. That's wonderful, Miss Martinez. I just wanted you to know what you did, it mattered. To people like me, it mattered more than you'll ever know. After she hung up, Marcus made his decision, not about the jobs that would come tomorrow, but about something more fundamental. He decided to stop seeing himself as someone things happened to and start seeing himself as someone who made things happen. The next morning brought chaos. News had leaked about both the Sterling Industries offer and the Pentagon Initiative. Reporters were calling emails flooding in, everyone wanting to know what Marcus Thompson would choose. But Marcus had learned something about timing from watching Victoria's fall and rise. Sometimes the most powerful thing was to wait to let the moment ripen before acting. He took Emma to school, went to the Thompson Initiative offices, where he volunteered twice a week and spent the morning interviewing applicants for assistance. Real people with real problems that needed real solutions. A veteran struggling with PTSD and unemployment. A single father working nights while trying to finish his degree. A maintenance worker whose husband's medical bills had pushed them toward eviction. Each story reminded him why this mattered, why visibility wasn't just about being seen, but about seeing others. Victoria arrived at lunch carrying sandwiches from a deli that definitely wasn't her old power lunch spot. "Thought you might be hungry," she said, setting the bag on his desk. "Turkey and Swiss, no mayo, extra mustard. Emma mentioned it was your favorite. When did she tell you that we text sometimes? She sends me butterfly facts. Did you know some butterflies can see ultraviolet light? They see a completely different world than we do." Marcus studied Victoria as she unpacked the sandwiches. 6 weeks had changed her profoundly. The hardness was gone, replaced by something more tentative but more genuine. She'd traded invulnerability for humanity, and while it clearly terrified her, she was persisting. "The Pentagon wants me to run a national version of the initiative," Marcus said. Victoria nodded. "Morrison told me. It's an incredible opportunity." Sterling Industries wants me, too. I know. I recommended you. Marcus looked at her in surprise. You did. Who better to humanize that place than the man who humanized me? She took a bite of her sandwich, then continued. You know what the hardest part of changing has been? Not the loss of money or power or status. It's learning to need people. I spent 38 years making sure I never needed anyone. Now I need everyone their patience, their forgiveness, their willingness to let me try again. That's not weakness, Victoria. That's strength. Is it because it feels like free falling without a parachute? Sometimes that's what growth feels like. They ate in comfortable silence, two unlikely friends bound by a moment of crisis that had transformed them both. Finally, Victoria asked, What does Emma think you should do? Marcus smiled. She says I should do what makes the most butterflies happy. Smart kid. So what makes the most butterflies happy? Before Marcus could answer, Morrison burst in his face, electric with excitement. You need to see this. Now! He turned on the office television to CNN, where breaking news banner read, Major corporations announce Thompson Pledge, living wages for all workers. The anchor was speaking rapidly. In an unprecedented move, over 50 major corporations have signed what they're calling the Thompson Pledge, committing to providing living wages and full benefits to all employees, including contracted maintenance and service workers. The pledge, inspired by Chicago janitor and war hero Marcus Thompson, represents the largest voluntary labor reform in American history. The screen showed CEOs at a press conference, one after another, committing their companies to the pledge. Then, surprisingly, Victoria's face appeared footage from an interview she'd apparently given that morning. Marcus Thompson did more than save my life, she was saying. He saved my soul. He showed me and every other executive that our success is built on the backs of people we've made invisible. The Thompson Pledge isn't charity. It's overdue recognition that every worker has dignity, value, and deserves a living wage. Morrison was grinning. She's been working on this for weeks, calling in every favor, leveraging every connection. She said it was her real apology to you. Marcus stared at the screen, watching as companies he'd only dreamed of working for committed to treating their workers with dignity. The ripples had become waves, and the waves were reshaping the landscape of American labor. His phone rang. The Pentagon. Mr. Thompson, in light of today's developments, we're expanding our offer. We want you to head a new federal initiative, not just for veterans, but for all invisible workers. Full cabinet-level support, direct line to the president, the resources to make real change. Marcus asked for 24 hours to decide. Then he called Emma's school, picked her up early, family emergency. He told the concerned secretary. Though it was more family opportunity, and took her to the Lincoln Park Zoo, her favorite place in Chicago. As they watched the butterflies in the conservatory, Emma slipped her hand into his. Daddy, are you worried about choosing? How did you know I have to choose? You have your thinking face on, the one you had when you were deciding if we could afford new shoes. Marcus knelt down to her level. Sweet Pea Daddy has to decide between different jobs. All of them would help people, but in different ways, and all of them would change our lives. Emma considered this with 7-year-old seriousness. Would any of them make you stop being you? What do you mean? Would you still read to me at night? Would you still make pancakes on Saturdays? Would you still be my daddy, who helps everyone? Always, baby. That never changes. Then choose the one that helps the most people. That's what you taught me. We help as many as we can. That evening, Marcus called a meeting. Morrison, Williams, Patterson, Mitchell, Patricia Reeves, and surprisingly Victoria all gathered in his living room. Emma served them juice boxes, her idea of hospitality, then retreated to her room to paint. I need your advice, Marcus said simply. 3 opportunities, all good, all different. Help me think through this. They debated for hours. Sterling Industries would give him corporate influence but limit his scope. The original Pentagon initiative would help veterans but miss other vulnerable populations. The expanded federal initiative would have the widest impact but remove him from direct service. Finally, Victoria spoke up. Marcus, what if you're thinking about this wrong? What if it's not about choosing one? Everyone looked at her. I spent 15 years thinking in terms of conquest, take this position, dominate that market, eliminate competition. But what if leadership isn't about conquest but collaboration? What if you could do all three? She stood pacing now, her old CEO energy returning but transformed. Take the federal position, but with conditions. Demand that it includes corporate partnerships starting with Sterling Industries, where you'd serve as a special advisor. Insist that the Thompson Initiative remains the model, with Morrison continuing to run it while you provide oversight. Don't choose integrate. Morrison was nodding. She's right. The federal position gives you platform and resources. Sterling gives you corporate credibility. The local initiative keeps you grounded in real service. It's possible, Mitchell added. I know the Pentagon. They want you badly enough to accommodate a creative structure. Marcus looked around the room at these people who'd become his unlikely family brothers in arms, former adversaries, advocates, and allies. You really think I could do all three, Marcus? Patricia said gently. You carried wounded soldiers for miles, raised a daughter alone while working 3 jobs, and turned a moment of crisis into a national movement. I think you can handle a complex organizational structure. The decision, when Marcus made it, felt less like choosing and more like accepting what had already been chosen. He would take the federal position with the conditions Victoria suggested. He would serve as special advisor to Sterling Industries, helping them become a model for corporate responsibility. He would maintain oversight of the original Thompson Initiative, staying connected to the ground-level work that started it all. But first, there was something else to do. The next morning, Marcus and Emma stood outside a small cemetery in Schaumburg, where Caroline rested beneath a simple headstone. They came here every month, but this visit felt different. Hi, Mommy, Emma said, placing a butterfly drawing on the grave. Daddy's been saving people again. You'd be proud. Marcus knelt beside his daughter, his hand on the cold stone. Care, I hope I'm doing right. I hope I'm becoming the man you always said I could be. I'm trying to show Emma that strength isn't about carrying everything alone. It's about knowing when to let others help carry the load. They stood in silence for a moment, the October wind rustling the trees that were just beginning to turn. Then Emma tugged on his sleeve. Daddy, look! A monarch butterfly late in the season had landed on Caroline's headstone. It sat there, wings slowly opening and closing as if delivering a message. Mommy says you're doing good, Emma said with the certainty only children possess. She says to keep going. As they walked back to the car, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Press conference scheduled for tomorrow to announce everything. You ready to change the world? He typed back. Already did. Now we're just making it official. That night, as Marcus read Harry Potter to Emma 3 chapters, as promised, he thought about the journey that had brought them here. From invisible to visible, from struggling to stable, from alone to supported. The fire that had threatened to destroy had instead illuminated, showing America what it had been overlooking. Daddy, Emma said as she was drifting off to sleep. Are we going to be okay now? Marcus kissed her forehead, thinking of the challenges ahead, the work to be done, the lives to be changed. Yes, Sweet Pea, we're going to be better than okay. We're going to help make sure everyone else is okay, too. That's a big job. Good thing we've got help. Emma smiled, already half asleep. Good thing we've got butterflies. As Marcus turned off her light and headed to his own room, his phone showed dozens of messages, logistics for tomorrow's announcement, congratulations from strangers, requests for interviews. But he ignored them all, instead pulling out a worn photo of Caroline from his wallet. We did it, Care, he whispered. Not the way we planned, but we did it. Outside Chicago sparkled in the darkness, a city of millions of stories, millions of struggles, millions of dreams. Tomorrow, Marcus would stand before cameras again this time, not as a victim or a curiosity, but as a leader, a change-maker, someone who'd transformed personal tragedy into public triumph. But tonight, he was just a father who'd kept his promise to his daughter, a widow who'd honored his wife's memory. A man who'd learned that visibility wasn't about being seen, it was about seeing others and making sure they were seen too. The butterfly Victoria had hung in the window caught the streetlight casting dancing shadows on the wall. Transformation. Marcus had learned was possible for everyone, CEOs and janitors, veterans and civilians, the powerful and the powerless. It just took someone willing to run into the fire, to pull others from the flames, and to keep saving people long after the smoke cleared. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new lives to change. But tonight, Marcus Thompson slept peacefully in his modest home, his daughter safe in the next room, his future bright with possibility, his past reconciled with purpose. The invisible man had become visible, and in becoming visible had shown a nation what it had been missing, the heroes who'd been there all along waiting for someone to see them, value them, and give them the chance to rise.